Hey, my friend, how are you today?
Man, I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. So I wanted to revisit something we talked about in episode two. Episode two, we were talking about how we can kind of make fun of ourselves or laugh at ourselves to disarm people around us and to make sure we don't take ourselves too seriously and don't set ourselves to get our feelings hurt if somebody says something, if it's true, right? And if it's
Yep.
not true, we just let it go, right? And so recently, I went out and we're doing some landscaping around the house. And when I say we, I mean like we have the plan and then we pay for people to do it. Um, so, so I got like these butterfly bushes. I've been like debating since we've been here for 3 4 years about whether or not we want to get rid of the butterfly bushes. And part of the conversation is I'm a city kid, so I love being around grass and all the flora and fauna that's around here.
Yep.
And I didn't want to get rid of the bushes because, like, butterflies. We know that there's like a they're not extinct or anything, but like they're endangered species and whatnot, and they have a migration pattern and all these things, and it's just beautiful in my yard. But the butterfly bushes, it looked like three bushes, but it's really like a bundle of like eight or nine that are
Mm.
together, and just kind of take up the entire yard. So anyway, I just was like, I just need my yard to be bigger, right? Like I want to have people over. I want to have like a bonfire. I want to have like the dogs have like a fenced in yard. Like I want the kids to be able to play. So I finally decided to, have them removed. And I mean, it was a little pricey to have them removed, but part of the disarming, every time somebody asked me like what we were getting done, I just kind of like made a joke about, and I know this about myself. I might be pretty smart, I think, but I am not handy, man. I can't cut things. I can mow a lawn, right?
Yep. Yep.
And I was like, I'm gonna cut my finger off. I'll end up like bastardizing it. Like it's not removed, but it's not there, right? So,
Yep.
so I just kind of made fun of myself. And anytime somebody said, you're just, at that point, once people started, whoever I was telling the project to, they would make a comment like, "I can't believe you're not doing that by yourself. It's just manual labor." And I was like, "I know. I'm not even gonna get mad at you for saying it because I know I could do it. There's just so many problems trusting me with a pair of um, anything electrical." So
What about a chainsaw?
yeah, man, we wouldn't be on a show anymore. like, like we wouldn't have a show anymore. You have to carry it on by yourself.
Oh
So
man. Oh man. No, I can't do it.
yeah, I
Can't do it
know.
without you, man.
So what about yourself? Anytime you laughed at yourself this past week?
I mean, I think I laugh at myself pretty
Every
much
day,
constantly.
right?
But it's interesting that this week I have been really diving into the book or listening to the book, uh, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Okay.
And then kind of one of the chapters in there, it does talk about kind of how to influence people to like you, but part of it is one, it's kind of seeing it from their perspective, but also um, being able to make fun of yourself, right? And I go back and think of just some of those times where I was like, just in front of stage or running for office. And I think I mentioned the time I was, the thing on Facebook I shared where I said I was fluffy.
Mm-hmm.
But even this week, I was going through some old videos that I used to create for church, and yeah, man, like some of those. I was the host of the announcements for the church. The church I was doing the church announcements, and I was recording them in my basement or at my house at the time. And this is 12 years ago, and I found these videos, and I'm like, man, I mean, I was I was funny looking, I was. How did people watch this? And then, mind you, these announcements played in front of 100 people on Sundays. I'm like,
And you're like,
man,
why would anybody
yeah.
do that?
Why did they ask me to do?
I thought I looked so good.
Oh man,
That's
I
so
don't know,
funny.
man. Then I was all nervous. I was yelling at the camera. I'm like, man, what am I doing?
That is so funny. That is so funny. That is so funny. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's times, especially I mean, when after the episode had been released, my brother and I took a nice long walk one day, and it was like during that time we talk about a whole bunch of stuff, right? And especially, I mean, that day we were out for like 4 or 5 hours, and we ended up talking a little bit around, philosophy, and I brought up the show. And when, if anybody would listen to the last episode, the moment I started talking to him about the premise of the show and started talking about childhood memories, he jumped directly to the one that I had pointed out.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it was so funny. We had such a good laugh about it. So I just thought it was funny. Full circle. Oh,
Yep.
it was funny.
Yep.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into today's stuff. Again, anybody who's watching or listening, if you contact us, drop stuff in. We'd love to hear your stories and what you're experiencing, what you're thinking, reflecting on.
Absolutely.
All right, so today we're going to continue with the main principle. Well, not main, maybe the main, but a main principle of Stoicism around the dichotomy of control, and focusing on what we can control, and not really worry about the things that we can't. And so that's the main pillar that we'll kind of continue to examine today. So here's the quote, and this is so fun. You know, I know that whoever listens to the show, we all have different backgrounds, and some people might be Christian, some may be agnostic, maybe as whoever, whatever your belief system is. That's one of the things I really like about this secular philosophy, because there's a lot of different things that we'll talk about that you could bring in a biblical base verse or two, because some of this it seems like it's not like it's common sense. But it's stuff that we tend to forget, and it's
Hmm.
2,500, 3,000 years old, and we've all been dealing with the same situations. It's just like a redo with a different person, right?
Yep.
And so there's a lot to talk about across traditions, and this one is about just being grateful. So according to Seneca's quote is, "We are often ungrateful for the blessings we have received, and we are always looking for more. But if we learn to be content with what we have, we will find that we have more than enough." And I mean, just reading it, like I know I've heard biblical verses about this. Like I know, just in conversation with people who are calm, whether they meditate, whether they practice Buddhism, whatever the case is, right? Whatever their mantras are, a lot of people talk about grounding themselves in blessings. And I thought, all right, this is a great quote for us to kind of unpack today. Just some background, and then we'll just start our conversation.
Yeah.
Just because I want people to know that it's not just Seneca who had said this. People like Marcus Aurelius, he believed that we should be thankful for the present, no matter the circumstances. So not really worry about what happened in the past or what will happen in the future, because they're both fallacies, right? They no longer exist. They haven't either existed, or they're already done and they'll never come back, right? So being in the present and being thankful for the present. And part of Aurelius's piece is that you can learn even things that are difficult and challenging. There's so much to take away. There are opportunities to become more virtuous. And then another one would be Epictetus. Epictetus taught that people become unhappy when they desire things that are outside their control, which kind of goes, full circle for us. Gratitude from a stoic lens is appreciating what you already have rather than what you're chasing. So I think it would be cool to kind of unpack making personal connections. I got some questions listed that we can kind of pin through, but do you have any initial thoughts on that?
I think it's one of those things. I think this really actually hit me after I got married, because when you really sit and observe with what you have, I mean, like, what do you really want after that, right? That's a terrible way to put it, but as you get older, right, you start thinking about, you know, mortality and death and things like that, right? But I mean, I'm not that old yet, but you start to, at least in my circles, we start to think about those things, and the reason is like, what do you want to spend most of your time doing, right? We're at the age where you do want to grind, you want to provide for your family, or at least I want to provide for my family, and Um, so that takes time, right? So that takes time away from maybe spending time with my family. But then at the end of the day, it's like, no one who dies on their deathbed says, I wish I had more stuff. I wish
Yep.
I had more money,
Yep.
right? I just wish I spent more time with the ones, that I love instead of trying to acquire more things. It was crazy because me and a friend was just talking about this yesterday. And it's just, you want to do, you want to be present doing the things that are fulfilling, like spending time with family, watching the kids grow, training and cultivating them. So, that's kind of where I come in and see this. But it's just kind of it's real interesting that you don't really realize that until you get a little bit older, at least from a natural progression. And maybe some people never realize that because there's this constant chase of things, especially with consumerism and commercials and advertisement and keeping up with the Joneses. Some people really don't take the time to kind of observe what you have. But that's how I see it.
Yeah, I mean, something that resonated with me when you were saying that is, and I don't think you have to have obviously the same lived experience in order to understand where somebody else is coming from, right? And but I think sometimes our lived experience is what helps us, move along. Like I would say in my um, early 20s, probably even mid 20s, like it was like immortality, dude. I didn't think about dying, not
Mm-hmm.
really. I was just like, I'm going to live forever, and when I don't live, I won't even know it, right? So like it
Yep.
was like that was that kind of mentality, that was before kids, with before like a center home, and just young and reckless, right? And
Yep.
then as I got older, and I my interestingly, I know I may have shared this already before, but my father passed away in November of 2012,
Mm.
but the November prior to, I'm sorry, the August prior to that, August 2012, my ex-wife's mother had died. Now they both died from cancer, different kind of
Mm.
cancers. But what I remember, I mean, I remember a lot, right? During that was a tough 14 to 18 month stretch, right? But
Yeah.
what I remember kind of really sticking out with me is like how they were brave when they knew that like that was done, right? Like when they knew there was no more fight left, there was nothing else doctors or medicine could do. But I remember my dad, he was feeling ill when he retired, um, and he at least got to pull his pension for like 8 months, and he had just was just glad that he got to see some of his retirement. My ex-wife, her mother, right? So we were really close, but she, one of the things that she said, like as she was coming towards the end of her time here, was, I didn't even get a chance to get the benefits of being retired. I've been paying into this system for so long,
Mm.
and it's coming up, right? And it kind of like reset. Like as I looked at work, I mean, I was like a flashbulb moment for me, because at that point in my life, we're talking 2012, right? So, you know. I was still career driven. I was still ambitious. I still knew what I wanted to achieve, at least what I thought I wanted to achieve. And but this idea of like we need to like not postpone these major trips, not postpone these events until retirement, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like one of those things that it just kind of resonated with me that you get so into the grind and chasing after what's next, and you're always looking for the next big thing, that for some people it is the trip after retirement. It is not going to work anymore. It is not waking up so early. It is
Yep.
not all of these things. But anything can happen.
Yep.
So if you're always waiting for that time, or always chasing that and not taking advantage of the moment that you have, yeah, I think you had said, like, you don't hear many people on their deathbed saying, "Oh, I wish I had more," whatever the material wealth is piece. But I do feel like people do say sometimes they wish they had more time, but it wasn't like they were short on time. They were just short with the experiences of the time that they had.
Mm.
They were planning beyond
Yep.
what they thought they would have had, right? And so.
So not, I think that brings up, like, I guess the sense of not being. It's almost is the thought of being, immortal, right? Because you think you have enough time, you think you're going to have enough health. If you ever play video games, you got the health bar is going down, and you think you can just keep going, keep going.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think we sometimes do think that there's always tomorrow, and the reality is there's not, like, tomorrow isn't guaranteed. So what do we do with the time we have today, and are we content in the time that we have today?
100%. 100%. And there's one thing about the reflection piece, right? It's one other thing about whether or not you're journaling, however you're reflecting at the end of a day. I mean, that's part of like a stoic activity, right? Is at the end of the day, understand that you basically lived an entire life that day, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you woke up, you were born, you went to bed, you died, right? And so, like, if you think of each day that you live as like it's individual life that you cannot get back, are there things that you're postponing because I mean, we all have things that come up, life in general, right? Like you can't just do whatever you want to do. It's not like carpe diem where you're doing all the things because you can't be guaranteed tomorrow.
Yep.
You got to be responsible, right? We got to do the things that we got to do to protect our families and provide for them. But at the same time, there is that balance of I can't keep pushing it off,
Yeah.
um, because it might not happen. So I thought that was a good point that you had brought up.
Yeah. Right on, man.
All right, so let's get into the questions. I think this will be fun to do. Um, so, so the first question I've got listed. All right, try our best to not be too generic, right? Because like the question is, what if I said the word blessing? What are five blessings that come immediately to mind? And cop out. No, I'm not saying it's a cop out, but it's like I could name five family members and be done, right?
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. But what are some things? It doesn't have to be five, but what are some? If I said the word blessing, like how are you blessed? What is a blessing that you're experiencing or have experienced? Which could you give me one or
So,
two?
I mean, the first one, I mean, this is cliche, but I really do feel this. Just the gift of life, being able to wake up the next day is, I think, a blessing, because I could have been out of here in my sleep. I could have Something could have happened. Just to be able to wake up another day and to experience, the sunshine, the rain, the warmth, the cold, what have you, I think is a tremendous blessing. And then I also think, just like, I don't know, like, just like my it's gonna sound funny, but my body, like, it's crazy that we have the ability to walk,
Yep.
right? The ability to think and reason, and just kind of like the ability to have experiences on this earth. Like, when you really think about those things, it's like, how did this happen? What is it that's causing this? And I think it's just a blessing to experience those things and have life. Of course, I'm gonna say my family, because you know, that's why we do everything we do. But watching them grow, watching them develop, smiles, frustration, overcoming fears, and just developing, and then just watching, like, when you have a kid, it's like this little human, and then that human goes from not being able to feed itself, talk, walk, to this now person with its own personality, own friends, own life. Kids nowadays have their own lives. It's like, and then you see that happening, and I think that's a tremendous blessing. Uh, what else, man? I think that was three, but I, I mean, I don't know, the ability to. I think, I don't know. I am, from one, grateful to have been born in America. It's like, just to be able to do something like this is not granted in every place on earth, right? I mean, just to be able to sit in front of a camera with a friend and have a conversation, quite frankly, in the middle of the day, and we're able to speak and say the things that we want, practice our faith, in how we want. So that just this whole being able to share and converse in our experiences is a true, I think, a tremendous blessing, because that's, again, this isn't afforded to everyone everywhere. And I don't know, this is one of the things, I'm just grateful for. And if I were to do five, I said life already, but I just, I say life again.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny though. I what I would love to do is do like a poll, like a universal poll, yeah, at least nationally, um, to see if we could like bucket these, right? Because I think, um, as you're talking, I'm like, I would have said that. I would have said that. I would have said that. Like, just we may have like different avenues into these, right? But,
Yep.
I guess I would have included, um, you know, the ability to provide or work in order to provide, because I do believe we have a role to play while we're here, and whether
Yep.
that's your employment or however you're supporting the community or your neighborhood or your people, however whatever that looks like, that kind of work is solid, and being able to do that is a blessing.
Yeah.
And I think like the resources that we have, like yes, it's part of being an American where we have this, but you know there's countries in the world where food insecurity is significantly worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And um, you know just having shelter and clothes, and yes, we've gone over the top as a country from a consumerism standpoint, but like got a shirt on my back and shoes on my feet, right? One of
Yep.
those things. And I think, how powerful is it when you talked about just life, if you just start there, right? And I'm not trying to go on a soapbox about it, but like people who commit suicide, like my mind has a hard time wrapping around how depressed and how like unloved you feel to get to that point. Because like when you wake up in the morning, just being able to take a deep breath
Yeah.
is like a blessing, right? And think about how, if you view it that way, how your day automatically is different. If I wake up in the morning and my alarm is going off, right? It rarely does. I have like a nice little. I mean, I don't know if it's the summer season. I mean, I still wake up early, even though we don't have to report into the building every single day. But I'm so used to waking up. Even my rhythm is set, right? But on the occasion that an alarm goes off, I may hit the snooze button for like 2 minutes,
Mm.
but I'd never wake up and think, damn this alarm, right? My first thought every day is, oh, I'm alive.
Yep.
Like, and it just helps me frame the rest of the day, right? Like, there are people, and especially like I said, everybody's story is different, everybody's situation is different. But I was only in my young 30s. I was like 31, 32, when very close family members, like I said, had to bury my dad, and like now that we're getting older, people are seeing their parents a little bit more fragile. My mom's still with me, God bless her, and but you can see like age happening, right? Like this,
Yep.
what you would have thought as a child. This is the progression of what happens. But I think going through that early on, it just really kind of reset a whole bunch of things that I wouldn't have really. I don't know if I would have been the same if I would have had the same thought process. But like I wake up and I think, wow, okay, thanks for allowing me to wake up. like
Yeah. Yeah.
let's get this started. And
Yeah.
it's like with all of it, it's like when I hear about people, you know, no, I won't say no one, but I would say a fair amount of people wake up and complain about having to go to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether they want to do something personally or they've got something going on at work that they just want to avoid, or there's tension, like whatever the case is. Um, but like people who don't have a job are begging for a job, right? And like you're blessed to like wake up and be like,
Yep.
instead of like,
Yeah.
oh, I have to go to work, like, no, you get to go to work,
Yeah.
right? And it just sets it differently. It's not to be like a pushover or a rollover and let the world treat you like a dirt, like a mat or anything, but it's just if you can't understand that these little things are like precious, like really precious, like these little things are the big things,
Yep.
then I think you're missing the mark, right? And it's hard to live a virtuous life if you're complaining all the time.
Yeah. No, you're right. Um, this has a question, but I don't know. But the first part of this quote, though, it says, "We're often ungrateful for the blessings we received, and we are looking for more." Right? That right there,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, represents an attitude of greed.
Mm-hmm.
And if you notice, like when you kind of have that attitude, it's like things are always either um, missing or it's cluttered or um, or disorganized. So when we're ungrateful for the blessings we receive and looking for more, um, it just creates a lot of messiness. Like if you think about someone, for example, a hoarder, right? Someone who has that, like they have a lot of things, but they don't want to get rid of stuff or not grateful for stuff they have. Like think about a hoarder's house, right? It's stuff's everywhere, can't find anything. So you're constantly in this state of looking for more or even looking for things you have, right?
Yep. Yep.
so
Yep.
when we live from from this ungratefulness, it is a sense of greed and disorder. But then when we learn to be content with what we have, we find that we have more than enough, and that hit me two, like in a couple of different angles. One, when you say, "Hey, all I have to drink is water, but water is enough," right? When you have this attitude, because this to me is an attitude of abundance, right? When you say, "I'm good with this," that means you have abundance, and the ironic part of this is that oftentimes when you express that you're content or have that attitude abundance, you're gifted with more, right? We hear those phrases like the rich get richer, but it's kind of like that's the story of the talents,
Mm-hmm.
where the two that did go out and were diligent with the talents, they received more, right? They weren't necessarily trying to be greedy or anything like that, but they went out and sowed and they got the harvest or what have you. But abundance comes from being content with what you have, right? And I think that has been expressed in my personal life. It just because me, I always say that I don't ask for much, but it seems like personally, I'm blessed, and again, blessed with a family, blessed with a place to live, um, blessed with a good job, blessed with the ability to start a business and do other things. But I just think that the attitude of being content is the attitude of abundance, and you're often um, just gifted more because you are content with what you have.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I love everything you're saying. I'm 100% with you. One of the things I wanted to flag though is like this idea of around um, the opposite of this feeling of abundance, right? This idea of being discontented, right? And oftentimes I think it's interesting because, like, even, I mean, I'm not excluded from this, that oftentimes my content can become discontent very quickly, right?
Mm,
And so I know people who, um, like, just like real world examples, right? Like I know people who are like, I can't wait. So tired of living in this house. I can't wait to move house, get to the new house. I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't. Um, a bid on a house, and how excited we are when it's been approved, and you're going through this stuff, and then you get this house, and there's like this, it's like that. It's like when you take a breath, right? Like, I've been meditating a lot lately, but it's like that breath that's in between, right? Where it's like, you inhale, and then you have a pause, and then you exhale, and then you have another pause, right? And it's that moment of that pause where, like, it's not really existing, right?
Yep.
Like, you're not doing any. And so it's like, you buy this house, you've been looking forward to it, and you get this house, and like, you are content. Like, this is the house that you wanted, this is the house that you chose. um, but at some point, the novelty wears off of said house,
Yep.
right? It is okay. Well, I just brought up about getting the butterfly bushes taken out, right? Like, when I first bought this house, man, it could have been like the gold standard for me. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
I'm buying a house. We've been here for 4 years before I do anything remotely to changing it. But it's just like, oh, well, I guess we could improve it. Right? But like, why would I want to improve it, right? And so, but I've seen people like jump house to house, or
Yeah.
buy a car right after, and then after the car is a couple years old, be complaining about the same car that they couldn't wait to get into, right?
Yep.
And so I think it's a very slippery slope going from, I think we are on the spectrum of being content to discontent, and like, where we live on this spectrum, I don't know many people who are discontented, like, who just can't stand anything all the time, right? Like,
Yep.
they're always wanting, wanting, wanting. But I also don't know many people who are just very pleased with exactly what they have, right? Like, it seems to be like a scale, like a radiant of people who are like, okay, this is how I'm going to be happy, and then I've achieved it. Okay, but now that I have achieved it, I obviously have to do more, right? And
Yeah.
that desire to want to do more is where, like, discontent comes in. We can do this with like anything, right? Like, you could talk about children. Like, how many people, like, I got family members who, like, they had to go through in vitro because, like, they couldn't have a baby naturally, right? They couldn't get pregnant, and like, it's a process, and then they have a baby,
Yeah.
by the grace of God, like, all the modern medicine, like, they're able to have this baby, and baby's born, and baby turns one, and like, they love life, and they love their child, and then they're like, but I wonder if we can get a second, right? Like,
Yeah.
like, number one wasn't, like, we just constantly are looking at the next thing,
Yep.
or for the next thing, and that is where, like, that suffering comes in, right? That is that idea of, that gradient of being content. And I don't know, maybe it's like that balance. You can be content and then still strive, but I feel like once you start striving, you allow yourself to become frustrated, right? If things don't start turning out the way you want.
So do you know what that is? Well, because I think it hit me when you were talking. Um, it's attaching an emotion to a thing,
Hmm.
right? And it could be exciting. It could be an excitement. It could be frustration. But it's like this thing is going to satisfy, my happiness. It's going to make me happy, right?
Hmm.
Instead of, and that's what contentment is. Contentment is, this thing doesn't make me happy, nor does it make me sad, right? It's just a thing that is. And I think I don't think there's anything wrong with striving for the next thing, right? Just long as you're not attaching your happiness or your well-being to that thing you're striving for. So when you talked about the car, people, you get this new car, was it the car that made you happy? And if so, right, at some point, it's that happiness is going to wear off. That happiness, because the car made you happy, right, is a temporary emotion or attachment. So when you're content, yes, you're happy with the new car, but it didn't make you happy, right? It was saying, hey, okay, I understand that it's a blessing to get a new car, but at the same time, this car is going to, wear down, wear and tear, is going to have some issues. It's something that's man made. I like it now. I might not like it in the future, but I'm okay with it, right? I mean, even me, right? I was used to getting a new car, every once in a while. Now it's like, it's it goes back to the first episode where it's like, it's just it's just a hunk of
Just a
metal with
frame. That's
four
right.
wheels that, yeah, when I press the gas it goes. If as long as it's doing that, we're good to go. Um, and I think that's the kind of separation
Yep.
between of what it means to be content versus like kind of like you know versus attaching something attaching emotion to to a thing.
Yeah, and like if we dig into this, right? Like if we pause here for a minute and we think about relationships that people have, right? And where these like relationships, whether they are spousal in nature or partnerships, like the idea that, and I love how you're saying this, right? Like if I'm understanding you correctly, right? So, you know, being virtuous is something that is internal. It is something that we can control, right? We can
Hmm.
control being courageous, right? We can control our just actions, right? We can control trying to attain wisdom, right? We can do these things. We can control like who we love and how we love, and if we're compassionate and kind, we can control that stuff. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing as like if you're in a relationship, what I've noticed is if you need a relationship in order for that to make you happy, then that relationship is already built on the rocky ground,
Hmm.
right? It is, that person is going to disappoint you at some point.
Yep.
They are not going to be the angel savior and give you the life that you imagined, right?
Hmm.
Now, if you say, "Look, I love myself and I'm ready to take this relationship to the next level. I'm not relying on you to make me happy. I want to be a partner."
Hmm.
Right? Then those are the ones that are built on solid ground, right? Those are
Yeah.
the ones that like you're not looking for validation. You're not looking for somebody to make you feel something. Being in a real good committed relationship is like you love them regardless, right? Like you just you love yourself, so
Yep.
and you're happy with yourself. So like, okay, now I can be with someone and allow them to make mistakes and not feel as though like my world shattered because now I'm not happy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, relationships are a great example. And I think that's a big reason why we see a lot of relationships fail is because it is contingent upon the other person making, um, making the other person feel a certain way. And then when that standard isn't hit or that metric isn't achieved, we see the rate of divorce and breakups that we see. And that leads to superficial relationships and relationships based on anything else other than love.
yep.
um, but yeah, I think you make a great point with the relationships.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm just thinking like just think about I don't put these people on idols and pedestals and stuff, but like just take people that are in like Hollywood, right? Like there's a reason why these people are divorced so much, right?
Hmm.
And not just I mean I'm a divorcee, like I'm now married, but like I understand to an extent like where you when you try to have happiness be filled by someone else, right? Like that is a very slippery spot. So
Yep.
it doesn't even care like what your financial situation is.
Right.
Because the reason I bring up like entertainers, because like they're in a financial ball game where they don't have to worry about this, right? But
Yep.
like there's a reason why really wealthy people still get divorced. It's got nothing to do with the resources, right?
Yeah.
It's where you've placed your level of contentment, right?
Yeah.
And
There's a phrase for that, too. Like the grass isn't always greener on the other side, right?
yep,
It's like,
yep.
like, did you tend to your yard? Were you happy with, the grass that you have? And then you're looking over there and see it, trying to compare, or you think it's better over there when it's, when you really are content with what you have, you realize like, man, like you really do have what you need, man. Like it's wild.
Yeah. So, okay, here's a double question. I'm just going to kind of combine them, kind of unpack this one. Um, what am I constantly chasing or wanting more of from a personal standpoint? And then you had just said, so that's a good segue is who or what do I compare myself to that makes me feel like I don't have enough, right? So, because I think that's part of the equation too.
Yeah. So, I'd admit, I do chase money. Um, I'm probably not in the sense of everybody else does, but it is something that I like to have.
Hmm.
But it's for what it could do for my family. Like the goal for me is to be able to spend more time with my family, um, just provide experiences and different ways we can hang out, whether it's at a theme park or, um, just whatever, putting kids in sports clubs or what have you. But that's the reason I really do uh, go after money. It's just so I can spend more time uh, with the family. But if I know quite a few successful people, uh, locally in Maryland and across the country, and in a lot of ways I want to be like them. There's one guy I know in Florida. He's a Cuban immigrant, but he makes about one point no, I think close to no, $1.9 million a year is what his income is. Um, I mean,
Who,
what
what are
would
you
I do
going to
with
do?
that?
Right? Yep.
What
Yep.
would I do with that?
Yep.
But he's a friend of mine. He's helped me out. See a lot of different things, but that's kind of one of those things that I want to be. And just the lifestyle that he lives. Yes, he gets the nice cars. Yes, he gets. He showed me a video tour of his house one time when he was about to buy it. And it's like multi-million-dollar mansion in Hollywood, Florida. And he sent me the video. Hey man, I'm about to buy this. Well, okay.
Well, we got different price range on our Redfin.
Yeah, I'm living on Redfin, and your house has not just drone footage above it, but the drone was flying through the house,
Wow.
doing a tour of the entire this is one of those kind of movies type
Yeah.
set houses that you would see, but with Aston Martins parked out front.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I would love to live like that, but those things are worth it to do it, but they don't mean like you're not content with what you have, right? And every time, people like even with him coaching and just what he shares with me, he's always like, you know, just keep building brick by brick, but be grateful for where we are. Grateful for the opportunities, grateful for your family, your support system. Be grateful for where you are now, because we only have one life to live. We only get to spend so much time with the families. But yeah, man. I mean, yeah, I'd love to have my own jet.
I know.
Um,
Well, I mean, I get it because, like, I'm thinking. I believe the term that a lot of Stoics would use is preferred indifference, right? So, um, these are things that you, just as it says, like you prefer to have them than not, right? You prefer to have good health, right?
yeah, yeah,
You prefer to have strong relationships. You prefer to have financial security, right? And there's, like you have said in the past, there's nothing wrong with wanting to do this. Where the potential pitfall would be is if you allowed that to change your moral compass, your
yep,
character, and your strive for virtue living, right? So if you said, "Look, I want to have $2 million as my income, but I'm willing to do some really shady back dealing, back alley dealing to get there," okay, well then, you know, that's a problem,
yep,
right?
yep,
That is no longer preferred indifference, right? That is now like part of your makeup, and so when I hear this, I think the same thing. I think also what we're also kind of exposed to that, ancient Greeks and ancient Romans. I mean, there's always, I would think, always been like a hierarchy, a caste system. People, there were people who had and people who did not.
yep,
And like it just blew my mind. My wife and I were talking about it earlier this morning. um, and I by no means think this is true, but statistically, financially, they're like, oh well, the tax bracket would put us in the like upper middle class,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was like, okay, um, I don't think so. but, but then you start thinking about it, right? And you're like, okay, well, what don't I have to worry about? I mean,
Yeah.
I work hard, right? She works hard. We do a pretty good amount of saving, but like, we have a house. Like we're not insecure around lodging, right? We're not insecure around food. We're not insecure around clothing. In fact, this weekend we have to go through the wardrobe and start thinking about what we're donating because we've just got too much stuff.
Yep.
And I think when you get to a point where you just have too much stuff, that's when like financially, you're not worried about money like I was 10 years ago,
Yep.
15 years ago, right? But my appreciation for money has never changed through this whole situation. Like my entire life, I've kind of viewed money as just like a means to an end, right? It's like
Yep.
I need to be stable. I need to be able to put food on the table. Like what I don't want is you to repo my stuff,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
don't want you to tell me I have to leave the house because we've got to, foreclose the home. I don't want
Yep.
you to take the car because we can't make the payments, right? Like
Yep.
I don't want that to happen. But again, it's not even about the material. It's just like, well, if I have to foreclose the house, where are we living?
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
now it becomes an insecurity. And the same thing with um, like anything around like the car. Like I don't care what car it is, but like I need the car to get to work, right? If you
Yeah.
repo my car because I can't make car payments, right? So I think the way I view money isn't like I don't put my self worth or my value of my life on this dollar. But it is nice when you look at somebody who does have it and you're
Yeah.
like, whoo, it would be nice to have like Jeff Bezos money and be like, you know what I want to do? I want to take a bridge down because I want my yacht to be able to cross some waterway, right? I want like that would be so interesting.
Yeah.
But I always joke about it, and this is not on the topic really, but the question to you that I have is now I don't know if I want to ask because I don't want you to get in trouble with employers or anything. I'll just put it this way and jump on if you want. I've often told anybody that would listen if I ever lucked into that kind of big money,
Mm-hmm.
I would still work because I feel like at 46, I have a role to play still, and it would probably be within a school system. And now it might be a different role, right? Maybe
Yeah.
I don't want to be okay. I don't need the money anymore, so instead of coming in and having to guarantee you 8.5 to 9 hours of work a day, what I'll do is I'll do. You want an interventionist that can do part-time stuff, right? Or go and volunteer at the Y a little bit more that I have time for and all this,
Yeah.
like that would shift. But the idea of working and probably pretty much staying in the profession um, is where I would still be.
Yeah.
I've said even when I retire, I plan on just still being around schools, just
Yeah.
because that's what I do. So
For me, I think it depends on the amount of money. Um, uh, I don't know. 'Cause it depends. It depends on the amount of money. Because I may stay working, but at the same time, I may just do more of what um, I personally want to do. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't involve not working, but it just may be working in a different area.
yep.
All right. But one of the things that is like just like you mentioned, I like working with people, helping people. Um, I do like those things, and I do notice. So I went to Israel for 2.5 months back in 2015, and yes, I was working, but it was one of those things where I didn't have anything else to do outside of work, right? So it's like, so now what do you do with your time, right? Um, and it was it's crazy because it just I started playing football. I started doing being like going around like for musical events. So I ended up somehow being a club promoter. That
That's
wasn't
cool.
really in my in my cards of things to do, but started playing drums around town.
Hmm.
But it was just kind of interesting of the exploration that happened as a result of just having time, so to speak. Um, so my weeknights were filled with activities like football and going to like the clubs and playing like open mics and jam sessions and um, things like that. Just and exploring. Like I would honestly like I really like taking photos. Um, and one of the things, and that's when I started my Instagram account, was in Israel, and my first like 50 photos are all pictures of stuff
That's
around
cool.
Israel. Um, so it's just one of those things. Like, what would you do if, if we were coming into that type of money? I would just probably be doing. I don't know if I work as much, but I'd definitely be doing stuff that's out and about in the community. Just more of what I like doing.
Yeah, and as you're talking, like I'm thinking about this show and thinking about this idea of being blessed, right? And thinking, um, what w- I had alluded to at the very beginning with like Marcus Aurelius, and whether they are like the situations, whether they are challenges, some events that have happened that you wish maybe you didn't have to go through, but you go through them because that's what life is about. But also like the cool experiences, the things that you hope that you could experience and you got a
Mm-hmm.
chance to,
Yep.
and to see like you can find blessings in both of them,
Yeah.
right? Hardships and like the triumphs, right? And so
Yep.
um, I think like when I'm listening to you think I'm think or talk, I'm thinking, how blessed. I mean, I've gone out of the country once. I've gone to Mexico, but I tell you, coming back onto United States soil, like I felt like home, right? Like
Yeah.
I was so glad to see like something that said the United States of
Yep.
America, right?
Yep.
And so when you're talking about Israel, like I want to take a trip to Israel, whether or not I ever go, who knows? I don't particularly care for flight, but 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 like we live in a time where you can go wherever you want, if you have the resources. Travel is possible, right? And so
Yep.
we're blessed there, but you're also blessed to be in your back home,
Yep.
in your backyard where you're
Yep.
comfortable, right? And you had brought up music, and I know that you love music, right? And how blessed we are to whether you attend service that has like a contemporary band, or we have the radio, right?
Yeah.
Like when you were talking about like being in the United States, you're like, we don't live in a country where like if I put on a radio station, all we're getting is propaganda from the leadership, right, or a
Yeah.
dictatorship. Like you can listen to music, and that is a blessing. And I just just sitting here with the air conditioner on, right? Like, or the
Yeah.
window open, right? Like,
Yep.
it's just one of those mindsets that if you just take a moment, um, and I think it sounds like cliche and it sounds corny, and I think, but people who legitimately can say that they're content with their life, I would bet most of them, when talking about their day, are more around the I'm so blessed to have experienced this.
Mm-hmm.
And to that end, with like Marcus Aurelius piece in mind specifically, like the different situations that are hardships. We talked about it the very first episode about like not coming from money, right? Well, now we can sit here and have an episode where we're talking about like, oh, what would you do if, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I also have it in my back pocket of like, how could you survive if,
Yeah.
right? If all of the money was taken away, well, guess what? Just because I didn't have the money doesn't mean I don't have my family. Doesn't
Yep.
mean that I didn't wake up in the morning. It doesn't mean that I don't have like a water to drink, right? Like
Yep.
there are things. I think it just allows you to see the peaks and valleys of life in natural cycles,
Yep.
and just be steady,
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Man, we are often ungrateful for the blessings we have received.
Hmm.
And I mean, I don't mean to hijack it real quick,
No,
but
no, have at it, man.
like I think you mentioned it just a moment ago. But what is a blessing, right?
Hmm.
Like what is yeah, just what is a blessing? And you mentioned like some of the hard times. We don't necessarily consider those blessings, right?
Yep.
If if it was sunshine all the time, right? That's why you can enjoy that creates a level of hardship too, but it's like, a blessing, right? So but what I'm trying to say is like those hardships, right, are blessings too, because they allow us to one grow, because they kind of put us in a test of a situation. In that test, there's something to learn, something to
Yeah.
glean from those experiences. And two is it's just that, an experience, right? It's a representation of being alive, a life. And can we really truly say we're living if we don't have good and bad experiences, right? So those things are really blessings, the joys and the peaks and valleys of life. It's a blessing, to experience that. So just kind of focusing on that word blessings is like we kind of just think of it as just the good things in life versus life itself, the experience. So I don't know what you think about that, man. But
Well, you know what? I saw this movie. I don't know. I'm dating myself because, like, it's a long time ago. It's probably 25 years ago, 20 years ago. But regardless, the movie is about this relationship that has taken place, and this guy, I believe Ashton Kutcher might have played in the movie, but he asked this dad, like an elderly dad, probably my age now, but asked his dad, how are you and your wife so happy still? Like, look at all these pictures, this life that you've created for yourselves, and like all of these pictures are them, are the this guy he's talking to and his wife, on vacation, and at a picnic, and places where it's like just like very nice family pictures to
yep.
remember the time. And he said true life happens between the pictures,
Mm,
right? And it always, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that's kind of like the idea that they had raised,
yep.
right? And it's like the trials and the tribulations to get you from one picture to the other is what makes that relationship so strong,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's pretty powerful when you think about it in this context. And it's you know if you never experience hardships, you would never know when you were blessed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's the whole, how much coal needs to be pressurized to get diamonds or whatever the jewelry is, right? Like there is something about um, becoming a better person by facing things, and,
Yep.
and and it's around relationships. Like, who you can really count on, not
Yep.
when things are great, but when things are not so great, right? And
Yep.
if you think about from a stoic perspective and you think about virtuous living, right, if you're thinking about wisdom and you're thinking about justice and courage, right, and temperance, like, how do you build courage? By being tested. I
Yep.
don't know if I'm courageous. In theory, I can tell you I'm courageous, but not
Yep.
until I have to stand up. I can tell you that I believe in a just society, but not until I see injustice and I'm willing to fight for it,
Yeah.
right? Like all of these things, like. I think that was part of Aurelius's piece there. Even just a reminder to himself: if the idea of living is to be as content through virtue as possible, then if it's all rainbows and daisies,
Yeah.
you can't really say that you're a virtuous person. You've never been tested, you've never been tempted, you've never been put through the fire. So
Yeah.
you don't have to be wise, right? What's there to be wise when everything is happening the right way, right?
Yep. Yep.
So
No,
yeah,
you're
I
right.
think that's good. Yeah.
No, you're right about that, man.
All right, let's see. What do we have? Do we have any other? I love that. I love the fact that we go back to the quote. I love that you kind of brought us back here. Think if there's any other buzzwords here. Talk about ungrateful blessings. Talk,
I was just thinking of the what we have part, and what is it that we do have,
yep.
right?
Yep.
Um, I don't know if I really have an answer for that, for what we have, like being content with what we have. And again, I think this might be again attributed to things because that's the kind of the easiest visual of what we have. But I do think it includes things like life, health, ability, skill, just the limbs that we have. I mean, and this actually kind of brings up, if we learn to be content with what we have, and you think about like amputees or people
Mm-hmm.
who have like certain disabilities and things like that, and then you see the level of achievement they go on to do, like the whole Paralympics, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you see people double amputees still running and winning races, and probably are faster than most of us out
Mm-hmm.
here, you know, that's, I think, an example of being content with what they have. And then just kind of their attitude from there is like, well, you know, I have more than enough. Like,
Yep.
you know, you might consider me disabled while you're chasing XYZ. I have more than enough with double amputee legs, and you know, whatever it is. And you just kind of look through that. It's like, man, you know, it's just, what is it that we have, right? I think, you know, again, I'm saying I don't have the answer, but my answer would be being content with the life we have. Just being content with life, the the breath that we have, the sight that we have, the smell, the ability to hear, the ability to touch. You know, the five senses, and the ability to process and observe emotions. Like, just being content with those things, we'll find out that we have more than enough.
Yeah, and like how great is this? Like if if we think about the idea of a rational being, right? Part of Stoicism principle would be to take that pause in between thought and action,
Yeah.
right? Or initial impulse and action, to take that pause and kind of think it through. And how powerful could it be as a working application if you are stuck in traffic and you're irritated, to take a pause and a breath and think, you know what, I'm blessed that today is a day that I don't have to take public transit,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, or because I mean, I took public transit my entire, up until I was a very young adult.
Yeah.
Um, Man, going on 95 and sitting there for an hour is a lot different than standing on three bus corners to get to school, and waiting for buses, right? Like it's just
Yep.
a different mentality and it's a different situation. But I think how many times, like if you are frustrated and like you're just that you can feel the ire, like you've acknowledged it, like that somebody has somebody close to you, right? Like I think about this with my daughters a lot, at least when they were a bit younger. Um, they're only going to be children, like you had talked about developmental stuff, right? Like
Yep.
they're only going to be this little one who needs you to make them a drink, who needs you to do XYZ with them or for them, because
Yep.
they're not independent yet, right?
Yep.
But like, okay, I'm tired and like I've had a long day and I'm finally sitting down and you ask me for something, and like your initial response is like, I just want to sit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you just take that beat and you pause and you think, how blessed am I to have this child here, because soon she's going to be grown up
Yep.
and not here anymore, right?
Uh,
It just changes it. It's like,
yep.
I got that, I got it. I'm not going to have an attitude about it. I got you covered, right? And I think how many like application. I think I would challenge most people who are listening that if you're frustrated, and not to diminish your thoughts or your feelings, but take a pause and wonder, is there a blessing in this?
Yep. Yep. What's funny about what you just said is, like, I had posted that a couple of days ago on Facebook. I said, when it comes to your children, make yourself available. Today I was thinking, I've been out of my parents' house longer than I've lived with them.
Yeah.
And it just
Mm-hmm.
made me think about my own children. They grow up fast and will be out of the house before I know it.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's just, it's just, man, that's crazy, man. Yeah, it's crazy. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, and how true is it, right? Like
Yeah.
I told you before we came on, like, last weekend my daughter turned 15.
Yep.
I was like, 15? Like we're talking like, now we've got work permit, and
Yeah.
now we got to start thinking about driver's ed, and at the end of this school year, now we got conversations around, okay, well, what do we got to do to prep for college applications, and
Yep.
it's just like before you know it, um, us sitting down and her asking me to play a, do a puzzle together, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's good to know that. I mean, I am proud of myself. I don't say this very much, but
Yeah.
like as a dad, like I knew it early on. Like I didn't
Yep.
need her to be 15 to remind me that they grow up fast. Like I was
Yep.
like, I'm going to be on the floor playing because this isn't a forever thing.
Yep. Yep.
Like it's here, but not when she's going to need it anymore. So
Yep.
I would just challenge, and myself included. I think this week that'll be like my big challenge is anytime that I feel like I am not centered, anytime I feel like my emotions are starting to get a little bit um, out of whack, to take that pause like I normally do, but really kind of start thinking, okay, how am I being blessed in this instance?
Yep. Absolutely. Right on, man.
All right. So everybody, again, the quote this week is: "We are often ungrateful for the blessings we have received, and we are always looking for more. But if we learn to be content with what we have, we will find that we have more than enough. May you always have more than enough. May you be content in your life. Please reach out, comment, tag us, do whatever we can. Love to hear you in the mailbag so we can start responding to you during our shows. All right, brother. Till next show.
Peace.
I guess.